Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher! And of course, a big topic of conversation that's popping up every single day towards me is 715. Now, 715 is an interesting patch. Some of you might not see the buzz about 715 besides things like Boat Day, which looks awesome, class-specific stuff, all that extra stuff that's coming in the light towards 7.15, and of course 7.2, which will include the rest of it. We're going to get some Brawlers Guild stuff, and we're going to get a whole host of new legendaries. Some of them look very exciting. But of course, there's a lot of class changes in there, and some that aren't there, ominous by their omission. And many people are asking the questions like, are we re-rolling? Should we save AP? Should we do this? Should we do that? What is the answer? And it's an answer I would desperately like to give you. I've seen plenty of videos popping up with people doom and glooming or praising or trying to just... I find it very clickbaity, honestly. 715 was released on the PTR, and I have been on the PTR and done several things there, but it also came with posts immediately after from Blizzard saying, whoa, fucking relax, bro, relax, we're going to fix some stuff. As it appears on the surface that a lot of classes got decimated, while other classes remained untouched, and other classes got some buffs and stuff. So it's a whole range and host of things. So if your class is looking pretty good for you. Some other classes look pretty bad, like mine lost like 70k DPS, which is like a little bit scary. And of course we run into this problem again, where people are like, well, I invested a shitload of AP, and Blizzard make a post a while ago saying that if you have reached something like your Paragon level, the 35 trait, then we don't really want to fuck up with that because you've invested literal millions of artifact power into that spec on our balancing. You know, we did that. We created the situation where that was the preferred spec. And now we might destroy that and be like, oh, well, the new players wouldn't like that. And again, I know rogues are out there saying, yeah, they told us that too, and then they fucking gutted our spec. I know. They keep not getting a clear message across, and we're not getting clear feedback, or we're not seeing changes that reflect their responses as well. So I wanted to touch on a couple of those things. We're going to look at Shadow Priest a little bit here because Serenity Madness is clearly a problem, right? We're not confused about that. In fact, I was really surprised. You might recall when I did the looks at the Shadow Priest in the alpha and the beta, is I said Serenity Madness is fucking really good. It's one of the best spells, if not the best spells that I've used in World of Warcraft in forever. It's so fun and so intense once you actually get it going. But I don't think it's going to go live. And they did. They were like, fuck it. Yeah, this spell is really cool. We're going to go live with it. And of course, as we've seen now, as Shadow Priests have become better and better, and this is a big part of it, and had more time to practice, and they've planned their fights correctly, is Shadow Priests are extremely dominant in pretty much every single fight in the game. And that is a problem. There's no doubt that's a problem. I don't think Shadow Priests who are worth their salt will be surprised to see they're trying to do something about it. But that runs into a couple of issues. Now, in terms of Serenity Madness itself, it's a almost throwback to the way the game used to be. As much as I see people, and I see you guys as well, a lot of my regular viewers, I see your names pop up in various forum threads across the internet, is I see arguing about how to balance it, how to make it work, and some people saying it's fundamentally unbalanceable because it's going to do this effect, and you either make it so it does its effect, which is severe damage at the cost of your life, or you make it just not worth taking. Now, I'm sure Blizzard is trying to find a way where it's going to do what it's supposed to do, which is be a decent execute ability. Right now, some fights are too short for that to be true, so they could pop it really early. And also, the big problem we always knew with Serenity Madness is the ability to essentially cheese various encounters. Cenarius Mythic has been a big example of this, where, I mean, even our guild did it. We had our priest pop Serenity Madness relatively early in the fight. That allowed us to bypass entire phases of the fight while we were still relatively undergeared early in progress in order to get the kill there. Yeah, because we bypassed the most difficult part of the fight and went straight into the final part of the fight. Similar with fights like Xavius. Xavius is always a big example where the average viewer will look at Shadow Priest damage there and go, lol, broken. But even if we take away the dream mechanics, the ability of Shadow Priest there to multi-dot, create huge amounts of insanity generation and pull that into the boss. There's a problem with spells that are essentially like you're bringing more raid members, right? I mean, if you look at the overall damage that some Shadow Priests can kick out on various fights, and I'm not talking about the ones where they can cheese, I'm talking about even your standard fights, it's almost as if you're bringing another half raid member, or even sometimes, depending on the skill delta, an extra raid member. So a mythic raid, in theory, and I'm trying to set an example here rather than get people quoting specific numbers, but if you bring 3 Shadow Priests, for a majority of the fight, it might seem like you actually have 23 raid members instead of the 20 that's supposed to be there and what the fight is potentially balanced around. You bring 4, you start to magnify this effect more and more and more. So, to give some history to this, Blizzard hates it when there are abilities like Surrender to Madness. Not because it's hard to balance, but because it's skill-based. This is a really interesting thing that you should know about if you're a little bit au fait with World of Warcraft, is Blizzard doesn't really like things that are very, very skill-based anymore. And there's a good reason for that as well. If you look at when I started my channel in Cataclysm, you'll notice that we did a lot of stuff in the early heroics because it was early on in Cataclysm. And what you'll find there in those videos is me going in essentially green gear and dominating those dungeons. And this is because the skill delta and the ability to manage your abilities was far more important than anything else. It was far more important than gear specifically, right? More important. If you understood the details of how your spec worked, you could be very dominant while wearing absolutely terrible gear because you were au fait with the nuances of the game. You knew where your priorities lied, where your low priorities were. If you then look towards the stuff towards the end of Cataclysm, there's a very stark difference there where even if you knew exactly what you were doing, you might be top, but you're not going to be massively different. And that's because there was a huge post during Cataclysm. I was trying to find it, but I can't find it here, where Blizzard actively made it so that essentially if you push what's not on cooldown, right, for the most part, if you push what's not on cooldown, you're gonna be pretty close to the guys who are mastering their spec. Now, before you go off on the rails and say, well, that's bullshit, if I play better, I should be better, that still exists. That still exists. If you play better and you do the things like I teach you, like proper positioning and planning and timings of when cooldown should be up and stuff, you will still be better than everyone else. But you shouldn't be so much better that the other person is essentially non-existent, right? You shouldn't be doing double the performance of other people. That's not what they want. Because whether you like it or not, the longevity of World of Warcraft and the amount of time it's been out is some people have a decade of experience in being able to do things like proper DPS. Now, I know a lot of players listening to this might go, well, it's not hard. Well, that's because you've probably not reached that point yet where you understand all the little things that are going on. And you could look into that and you'll think you'll find it quite exciting once you realize this stuff. There's potentially not long enough left in the game's entire lifespan for a new or average player to even reach that pinnacle, to reach that point. It's unfair. It's unfair. It's very unfair. While you've got players who can literally masterclass managing every trinket cooldown, lining up everything properly, knowing exactly when this is the perfect moment to not be disturbed, and then compare that to your average guy who's picked it up and played a little bit and done some world quests and done all that kind of stuff, it's insurmountable. It's a mountain that they just can't climb, and that's not cool. It's not cool for anybody. It's not a benefit. So this is why the biggest problem with Surrender to Madness, coming back to that, is that it's skill-based. It's a very, very, very extremely powerful skill-based ability. And it's not so much, although it is a problem, that they're doing tremendous damage. It's that as you move down the tiers, the amount of damage that a Shadow Priest can put out dramatically drops. And we can actually see that in logs. So what you can see here is at the very top end, Shadow Priests are not only first, but they are dominant. The difference between first and second place is enormous. Absolutely enormous. Now, as we move down the percentiles, and you guys can check this stuff out as well, if you go to Warcraft logs, look at overalls and start changing the percentiles, you'll start to see that Shadow Priests start to drop and drop and drop. They're never terrible. They're never terrible because even average players can get some decent results out of it, but you'll see that dominance quickly drops from being first by a mile down to being sort of high middle of the pack, lower than most things. But what you'll also see, which is what you should take away, is things like an Assassination Rogue from very, very top end, even down to the lower end, are consistently in the same place. Arguably an easier spec to get good results out of, or arguably a spec where you can make some more mistakes and it's not that punishing. It's not that punishing as something like Surrender to Madness, where if you screw it up, you flat out die, and that's the end of your road, right? That's what we're saying there. I'm not trying to say Assassination Rogue is herpa-derpa-derpa easy. I don't want to set off people who go uber defensive there. What we're saying is there's nothing as punishing there as you screw up and you're literally dead on the floor doing 0 damage. Massive world of difference there. So Surrender to Madness is something that we expected to get changed, but I just hope you understand why, rather than being those guys who see, well, Herpaderp, they do a lot of damage, that's not fair. That is correct, but it's not the be-all and end-all of it. The fact of the matter is, the really good Shadow Priests are getting results out of it that the average Shadow Priest just can't get to. And whether or not you can sit and say, oh, well, practice, 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 and you'll get there. Yeah, you will, but there's still going to be decisions on that dispersion at 20 insanity that other people just aren't going to have the experience and wherewithal to understand the 4 or 5 different timers that are going on that allow you to make that decision correctly, which is the important part to do it. I will be sad to see the spell go if that ultimately is what happens, or makes it so defunct and terrible that nobody ever takes it, because I'm still in the camp that spell is really, really fun, and I like working on stuff that's very skill based so I can get it out there. I didn't get a chance to try. I've just been tossing around with my Shadow Priest a little bit to get some stuff out. Obviously, as I play a main Fire Mage, many people asking me, what am I doing? Because recently on the stream, people have seen me playing Arcane and playing Frost. I've decided to re-roll. Have I decided to re-roll? Well, no, we don't know what's happening. And this is the overall answer to 715, is we are still waiting. And it's been a while. It has been a while. To get the results of what we're going to want to see in 715, which is the numbers fix. Are they going to change more gameplay? Same again for the Hunters, the Demon Hunters, who are looking at some significant changes, and other classes who are hoping for changes. We've not seen much stuff on DKs yet, despite the fact their representation is extremely low. Extremely low, and looking for some significant changes there. We've seen some little tweaks, little buffs to Unholy, little stuff like that. And same again with the tanks. People looking to see DK tanks being propped up a little bit. And of course, the Brewmaster, which are getting severe under their own representation right now. I want to give you these answers as to what you'll be doing in 715. And as soon as I possibly can, I will. As soon as I possibly can, I will. Just be wary of making any good big decisions right now, like I've already committed to reroll to a different spec. I know people in my guild have already abandoned their class to reroll something else, and it's something that you kind of do want to get ahead of. I get that. I really do get that. But if you love your class and spec, don't do it just yet. You might want to save some AP, save some emissary caches and stuff, but bear this in mind. I think this is really important to note if you are considering like AP and stuff like that, is that by the time 715 comes out, your artifact knowledge will be significantly higher. Yeah? Significantly higher. And that's something you need to know. So 715 apparently has a PTR build coming tomorrow, which will be cool. I can get more in depth there, but I know many of you are really antsy right now, particularly if you're one of those specs that's getting significant changes as to what to do. So as soon as I have those answers, I'll give them to you. But right now, don't do anything rash. You might want to save some emissary stuff. You might not want to. If you've got some massive AP gains, you might need to wait a bit. But if you're still actively raiding and you're working towards your Paragon level, just invest it for now. It could be a little while away, and again, your artifact knowledge will pick up then. Ladies and gentlemen, 715, we all wait with bated breath, but if nothing's happening to you in 715 and it all looks good, congratulations. And if you're waiting for changes to your class and spec, we'll wait and see. We should have a build tomorrow. So if I don't get a video out then, please check the check sites like MMO Champion and see what's going on there. All right, guys. Bye-bye.